It's 6 p.m. on a Friday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's begin with the headlines. The UN Security Council holds urgent closed-door consultations to discuss North Korea's latest defiance of UN resolutions, a mid-range ballistic missile launch, the second of its kind in less than a month. Korea's overall industrial output marked back-to-back spikes, but a closer look reveals the driving factors include a front-loaded government budget. South Korean TV drama Descendants of the Sun has a faithful following in countries around the world. Its explosive popularity has already helped generate more than $880 million in revenue. The UN Security Council has warned North Korea to expect a strong response after it tried to launch 2 mid-range ballistic missiles earlier this week. Meanwhile, South Korea's defense ministry says it's highly likely the test firings will continue. Kim Ji-yeon has our top story.
South Korea says it is very likely that North Korea's recent missile launches won't be its last. Defense Ministry spokesman Moon Sang-yoon said Friday that given that North Korea dared to test 2 of its Musa missiles after its previous failure, we cannot rule out the possibility of Pyongyang conducting more launches. North Korea attempted to launch 2 mid-range Musudan ballistic missiles from its eastern coastal city of Wonsan on Thursday. The first missile reportedly went off course and crashed into the sea seconds after the launch, while the second exploded in midair after being airborne for about a minute. In response, the international community is expected to take strong measures against Pyongyang. The UN Security Council is currently holding an emergency meeting and is expected to adopt a statement condemning Pyongyang, as Security Council resolutions ban North Korea from any kind of launch using ballistic missile technology. Members of the council already adopted a statement against North Korea for its missile tests and its test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile earlier this month. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
North Korean threats topped the agenda when China and Russia's foreign ministers met on the sidelines of a security meeting in Beijing. They reiterated calls to resume the long-stalled 6-party talks and expressed concern about THAAD deployment in South Korea. Connie Kim fills us in on what was discussed by the North's 2 traditional allies.
China and Russia called on South Korea and the U.S. to discuss the swift resumption of the 6-party denuclearization talks and continue to voice their concern over the possible deployment of the U.S.-made Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System to South Korea. The comments came from Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov during a meeting on the sidelines of the Conference on Interaction and Confidence-Building Measures in Asia, or CICA, in Beijing on Friday. Lavrov said he and Wang had discussed the escalating tensions on the Korean peninsula following Pyongyang's 4th nuclear test and said denuclearization talks are the most effective path to regional security in Northeast Asia. The Russian diplomat also remarked on the U.S.-made missile defense system, saying North Korea's actions should not be taken as a pretext for THAAD deployment. The Chinese foreign minister echoed the sentiment, saying Beijing and Moscow would both be directly affected by the deployment and that their concerns must be taken into consideration. Seoul and Washington agreed to formally discuss deploying a THAAD battery to South Korea, following North Korea's long-range ballistic missile launch in February. China and Russia have both been against the deployment as they believe it would give the U.S. an edge in regional security affairs. The 2 diplomats also had a clear message for the North: abstain from any new provocations. Many observers in South Korea say, however, that might be wishful thinking at this point. With North Korea's recent missile launches having ended in failure, the speculation that the North will go ahead with its 5th nuclear test next week ahead of its ruling Workers' Party Congress has ticked up a notch. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
South Korea and the United States wrapped up their annual joint military drills. Kim Hyun-bin looks back at the largest of its kind to date, carried out as scheduled amid the heightened tensions on the Korean peninsula.
The 2016 Key Resolve and 4 Eagle drills, the largest ever, have ended in success, demonstrating the strength of the South Korea-U.S. defense posture.
The field training exercise 4 Eagle kicked off on March 7th alongside the command post exercise Key Resolve, which ran for 2 weeks. The combined set of drills were the largest of their kind and came on the heels of Pyongyang's 4th nuclear test and intercontinental ballistic missile launch earlier this year. The exercises involved 300,000 South Korean troops and 17,000 U.S. troops, along with key strategic weaponry from the U.S., including a nuclear carrier and a submarine. During the drills, the Allies implemented Operational Plan 5015 for the first time. The strategy includes rehearsals for a preemptive strike on North Korea's key military facilities and its leadership.
During the exercises, South Korea and the U.S. enhanced our interoperability in countering diverse types of threats from the north.
Even though the drills have ended, the South Korean military is still on high alert for possible provocations from the north, including a fifth nuclear test and ballistic missile launches. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
North Korea has sentenced a Korean-American man to 10 years of hard labor for spying on the communist state. 62-year-old Kim Dong-chul was allegedly arrested last October, but his detention was not publicly known until the North Korean authorities revealed his existence to CNN reporters in January. The naturalized American businessman is said to have pled guilty to trying to steal classified military information. It is not known under what condition the confession was made, but other foreigners held in the North have later said upon their release that statements of guilt were coerced. It is believed Kim is one of 6 being held captive in North Korea, including 3 South Koreans and fellow American Otto Warmbier, who was similarly sentenced to 15 years of hard labor in March. South Korea's 3 main political parties are trying to work out their differences on a number of contentious, long-pending economic bills to clear the way for the new National Assembly that starts work next month. Unfortunately, according to our Kim Young-gil, it seems they have a long way to go before reaching any agreement.
The ruling Saenuri Party said Friday it is crucial for Parliament to pass 4 labor reform bills it sees as key to job creation and efforts to restructure ailing companies.
The labor reform bills contain a set of comprehensive measures to deal with unemployment and corporate restructuring. Workers will be facing a dire situation if the bills don't pass.
The main opposition Minju Party of Korea said, however, that the labor reform bills fall short of addressing the problem of youth unemployment.
It's laughable they think this labor reform package will boost youth employment. The government and Saenuri Party should instead focus on the polarization in the labor market.
The floor leader urged the ruling party to pass the Minju Party's youth employment bill instead. Meanwhile, the minor opposition People's Party criticized the government's plan to consider a Korean version of quantitative easing, proposed by the ruling party and the president as a way to support corporate restructuring and save the economy.
A move to consider quantitative easing means that the Korean economy is in crisis. Before something like that is even considered, the government must first acknowledge its economic failures.
Instead, Ahn proposed a government injection of stimulus. The deputy floor leaders of the 3 parties will meet next Wednesday to iron out their differences on the economy and settle any remaining parliamentary affairs before the new National Assembly comes in at the end of next month. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
The country's overall industrial output rose for the 2nd straight month in March, but the number suggests it's too early to tell. Hwang Jie takes a closer look at whether the Korean economy is finally finding its feet after sitting in the doldrums for months.
Korea's industrial output picked up pace in March, rising 0.6% from the previous month. This is after figures dropped in January only to rebound the following month. In terms of last month's output, despite a production drop in the mining and manufacturing sectors, output across all industries rose thanks to robust activity in the construction and service sectors. But it's not all good news, as the rise in construction was mainly driven by state-run projects that swelled investment in social overhead capital as the government front-loaded its budget in the first quarter. When looking at production figures in the first 3 months of this year, the industrial output remained unchanged from the previous quarter, while output in the service sector actually dropped. Retail sales that rose over 4% in March from a month earlier also slid in the first quarter, deepening concerns from early this year that Korea might see a drastic drop in spending.
Late last year, domestic demand was doing better than exports, and that was due to the consumption tax cut on products like automobiles. Although the tax discount was extended in the first quarter, people have already bought whatever durable goods they need, so now we're facing the reality of consumption falling off a cliff.
There is a silver lining ahead, though, as the business sentiment index for this month came in at 71, up from 68 tallied a month earlier, according to the Bank of Korea. Although this signals confidence is on the rise among manufacturers, prospects are not quite bright enough as the figure remains well under 100, showing pessimism still prevails. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Korea's central bank has made it clear that financing the cost of corporate restructuring through state-owned banks must be carried out with state budget support. Bank of Korea Deputy Governor Yoon Myung-sik said Friday, though there are differing opinions about the urgency of the government's restructuring plan, it will need a social consensus in order to execute its authority to issue more currency. There have been growing calls for the central bank to use its authority to act because parliamentary approval is required for the use of government funds, and that's a longer process. Yoon's comments come as President Park Geun-hye expressed the need for a Korean style of quantitative easing that would have the central bank buy bonds from state-run banks. Under the current law, the Bank of Korea can purchase or sell government bonds, but not corporate bonds or other debt. Korea has decided to issue 4 more licenses for duty-free stores in Seoul. According to the Korea Customs Service, the additional shops are necessary to meet the growing demand from foreign tourists, especially visitors from China. The agency also said one of the 4 licenses will be granted to a smaller mid-sized company. Sales by duty-free stores rose to a combined $8 billion last year, growing at an average rate of 20% annually over the past 5 years. The government expects the new shops to give the local tourism industry a boost through new investments worth nearly $1 billion and the creation of at least 5,000 new jobs. A bidding war has begun among Korea's 3 biggest telecommunications companies to secure the best bandwidth for faster and broader data services. The total cost of the auction, which could last over a week, could reach up to $3 billion. Kwon Jang-ho reports.
Korea's 3 major mobile carriers, SK Telecom, KT and LG U+, are set to battle it out to secure premium operating frequency bandwidths put up for auction by the government. 5 blocks of bandwidths are up for grabs, worth over $2 billion. The auction will take place in 2 stages. First, there will be 50 rounds of bids, and if a winner is not found by then, one will be chosen through a secret sealed auction. The whole process could take up to 8 days. The 2.1 gigahertz bandwidth, also known as the golden spectrum, is expected to attract the most attention. It is used for super-fast LTE services and is likely to be used for the next generation 5G services in the near future as well. This block alone could end up drawing bids of almost $1 billion. SK Telecom, which previously owned the block, will be looking to secure it again as it has already invested $750 million into network facilities for the bandwidth. Before 2011, the government had the responsibility of assigning the bandwidth, but it was later accused of favoring certain carriers. Now, however, the auction process has also come under fire due to huge costs that have come from the bidding wars. Still, as the Korean public's appetite for mobile data continues to grow, the carriers have been left with little choice. Data usage for mobile devices in Korea has increased by 600% in the past 3 years, and securing the best frequency to provide the fastest service is seen as key for the ultra-competitive mobile market in Korea. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
With dedicated viewers from all corners of the globe, the Korean drama series Descendants of the Sun upped the ante for future Korean productions. It also had another profound effect, generating nearly $880 million in related exports. Shin Se-min looks into the highly successful soap opera's impact on the economy.
An unexpected blue chip for the country's economy, the mega-hit Korean TV drama Descendants of the Sun is raking in millions in profit and economic value. Data from the Export-Import Bank of Korea show that the direct and indirect effects of the TV series are estimated to be above 1 trillion won, or roughly $880 million. The war-themed romantic drama has been exported to 32 countries worldwide, from Asian countries like China, Japan, and Taiwan, to countries in other continents like the U.S., the U.K., and France. Exports related to the series have so far generated around $6.1 million, and the state-run lender expects the TV series to create $7.5 million worth of added value. The 16-episode TV production has exposed a number of Korean products, including big-shot export items like SUVs from Hyundai Motor, cosmetic products from Amore Pacific, and ginseng health supplementary food. And as a result, the country's largest automaker anticipates the drama series to generate $96 million worth of advertising effects, while the cosmetic firm saw one of its best-selling items fly off the shelves, and the red ginseng product sales grew 176% on year, all thanks to the TV show. President Park Geun-hye and a number of industry watchers are thrilled over the success of the drama series, with its aim of boosting Hallyu again. Local economists say that Korean dramas have an influence on consumers, mostly in Asia.
Overseas fans of Korean programs are more likely to buy Korean products that appear or are related to the shows. That corresponds to the rise in the country's exports and stimulates surge in the manufacturing industry.
Experts add, however, that both the firms and the government should seize this opportunity and not let the popularity of such show be a one-time experience, but should work to extend its prosperity become a long-term source of cash flow. 신사민, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this hour's newscast. Thank you for watching.